The sound of strangers bidding on my china hit me before I even reached the porch, my son's voice loudest of all. Still, I stepped through the crowd like a guest at my own funeral, unnoticed by my daughter-in-law. As the auctioneer listed miscellaneous bedroom items, I spotted my wedding quilt boxed, priced, and folded without a thought. While she laughed about clearing space, I stood by the fence holding the original deed. The same children I once raised to tell the truth had sold my things before checking the name. That's when he read it owner. Mother and I told them the sale was over. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. I always dressed for Sunday the same way, like routine could keep the world from shifting under my feet. Stockings, navy skirt, the blouse with pearl buttons I'd pressed until the creases held their own opinions. In the hall mirror, I checked my collar and smoothed my hair back. Careful and exact, an old habit from years of altering other people's clothes for weddings and funerals. You learn something in that line of work. What's properly fastened tends to stay put. Before I left, I did my quiet rounds. Lights off, thermostat down, back door bolted, front door locked, then checked again because the second check isn't doubt, it's discipline. I tucked my purse close, the straps snug against my shoulder, and stepped into Louisville's winter-bright morning. Church smelled like lemon polish and paper hymnals worn soft at the edges, pews that remembered every elbow. Pastor Elaine stood at the entry, warm hands and steady eyes. "Lori," she said, and it felt like being seen without being inspected. "You look lovely." "I look like myself," I answered, which was the truth I preferred. I slid into my pew, second row on the right, where my husband used to sit like he was anchored there. The organ filled the room. For a few minutes, I let the music do what it always did, lift me just enough that grief didn't feel like weight, only weather. Pastor Elaine preached about stewardship, about caring for what you've been given. I listened, nodding at the right places. My hands rested in my lap, still as folded fabric. Then my phone vibrated in my purse. Once, I could have ignored it. Twice, I couldn't. I drew it out low, screen tilted to my thigh like I was hiding a secret from God. Macy. My granddaughter didn't text during service unless something was wrong. Her message came first, small, uneven, like her fingers were shaking. "Grandma, are you home?" Before I could answer, a photo appeared. It took my brain a second to accept it. My living room, my hallway runner, and in the foreground, my lamp, the stained glass one my husband picked out because it looked like sunlight being carried out my front door by a stranger's arms. My throat tightened, not with tears, with focus. My face stayed calm. No gasp, no flinch. Around me, people murmured amen and shifted coats. In my head, I ran inventory the way I always had. Silver tray, quilt chest, my husband's watch in the top drawer wrapped in cloth. I could see each item where it belonged, and that made the photo feel like a theft of more than objects. It was a theft of order. I didn't reply. "Not yet." Words get used against you when people want you to look confused. When the final hymn ended, I moved through the aisle with a polite smile that cost me nothing and saved me everything. Outside, the cold air hit my cheeks sharp and clean. I stood by my car and called Ben. One ring, voicemail. I called again. Voicemail again, like a door gently shut in my face. I didn't leave a message. I got in, adjusted the mirror, put both hands on the wheel, and drove home without speeding, without drama. The kind of calm that isn't peace, it's control. 2 blocks from my house, I saw the first unfamiliar car parked crooked at the curb. Then another. Then a pickup with the tailgate down. My stomach went cold with certainty. People don't park like that for a visit. They park like that when they plan to carry a life out piece by piece. I didn't pull into my driveway. I rolled past my own mailbox like it belonged to someone else and stopped 2 houses down, tucking my car behind a minivan with a church sticker on the back window. From there, my home looked normal brick, tidy steps, wreath straight. But the yard moved like an anthill. Strangers crossed my grass with boxes that used to sit in my closets. A man in a ball cap carried out a framed picture with both hands, careful like it mattered. A woman hurried with a wicker basket tucked against her hip. The sound was wrong for a Sunday afternoon. Bargaining voices, quick laughter, that casual hunger people get when they're touching someone else's story. I sat very still and counted without meaning to. Cars lining the curb. People coming in, coming out. How fast items left the house and didn't return. On my driveway, a folding table I didn't own had been set up like a command post. Behind it stood Kendra, bright and polished, smiling the way she smiled at PTA meetings like the world was lucky to be organized by her. A cash box sat near her elbow. She took bills, wrote on a pad, tore off receipts. Every gesture said legitimate. "Sweetie," she told a woman in a puffer coat, voice syrupy. "If you want it, grab it now. These go fast." "Sweetie." The word landed like grit in my teeth. Ben hovered behind her near the garage, moving things with the stiff urgency of a man doing something he can't admit. He lifted a box, set it down, lifted another. His eyes slid away from people's faces, away from the street, away from the truth. Once he glanced toward the road and my heart made a foolish little leap until he looked away again like the curb had burned him. I opened my car door and stepped out. The cold bit through my stockings. The noise around my house shifted slightly, not because anyone respected me, but because a body walking with purpose changes a scene. I went up the sidewalk at an even pace, no rushing, no hesitation. The kind of walk that doesn't ask permission to exist. The details sharpened as I got closer. My dining chairs sat on the lawn in a neat row, like they'd been lined up for inspection. A sign stuck into the grass said Estate, Sale, in thick black marker, cheerful as a birthday banner. Someone had dragged my cedar quilt chest toward the driveway. Price tags fluttered from corners and handles. I stopped by a box filled with my wedding china, white with a thin gold rim. The set my mother insisted I register for, even though I said I didn't need fancy. A bright sticker was slapped on the side. Auctioneer. A few feet away, laid out on a blanket like it was nothing more than cloth, was Macy's baby blanket pink cotton with faded little ducks, folded neatly, as if neatness made it less cruel. A tag pinned to it read, Wumeiyuan. My throat went tight, then very quiet. I lifted my eyes. Kendra noticed me at last. Her smile didn't vanish. It adjusted, a mask shifting when you tap it. She straightened behind the table and raised her voice so the nearest shoppers could hear. "Oh, good," she called, bright as brunch. "You're back. This is for your own good." A couple people turned. One woman froze mid-step with my lamp in her hands. Ben stared at the ground. I walked to the edge of the table, close enough to see the sheen at Kendra's hairline, and I spoke steady, clean, unmistakable. "Who told you?" I asked. "You had the right?" Ben's head snapped up, and Kendra's smile tightened like a knot pulled hard. For a moment, the whole yard held its breath. Kendra kept her smile in place, but it wasn't friendly anymore. It was something practiced, like she'd already decided how this story would be told, and was waiting for me to cooperate. Ben finally lifted his head, then looked away again, hands hovering over a box as if he couldn't remember why he'd picked it up. I didn't raise my voice. I stood there and let the silence do the work. People shifted their weight, glanced at one another, unsure if they were still allowed to browse. One woman paused with my lamp in her hands, eyes darting between me and the driveway table. My phone buzzed inside my purse. I pulled it out slowly, expecting foolishly that Ben might finally call. Instead, it was a text. "Please don't make a scene. Kendra said this is best." I read it twice. The words didn't change, but something inside me did. Don't make a scene. As if I'd wandered into someone else's home and needed to mind my manners. And then the part that landed like a cold coin in my stomach, Kendra said. That phrase told me everything. Not because it proved Ben was weak, though it did, but because it proved he'd handed his judgment over like it was a coat he didn't feel like carrying. He wasn't confused. He was compliant. I slid the phone back into my purse without replying. A reply would make it a conversation. This wasn't a conversation. This was an attempt to manage me. A small shoulder brushed mine. Macy. She appeared at my side like she'd been looking for the safest place to stand. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. her eyes bright with fear she was trying to hide. "Grandma," she whispered, barely moving her lips. "Mom told people you're moving soon." My gaze stayed forward, but my attention sharpened on her voice. "Moving," I repeated softly, tasting the lie. "She told them you agreed," Macy added lower. "She said you wanted to downsize." Downsize. The word people use when they want to make erasure sound reasonable. I looked over the lawn, my chairs lined up, my quilt chest dragged near the driveway, price tags fluttering like cheap confetti. It wasn't just the things that made my stomach turn. It was the narrative being built in daylight. If Kendra could sell my belongings publicly, then the story would become a fact, people repeated. "Lori's moving. The family's handling it. Lori must need help." And once that story took root, my objections would sound like denial. My ownership would become debatable. This wasn't just about money. It was about making me small while I was still standing. I took one slow breath and looked past the folding table to the man standing slightly apart from the crowd. Older. Solid. Dark coat, gloves, a leather folder tucked under his arm. He didn't move like a neighbor hunting bargains. He moved like someone who worked by procedure. I stepped toward him. Macy stayed close, like a quiet anchor at my elbow. "Sir?" I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "Are you the auctioneer?" He turned. His eyes held that cautious, professional look like he'd walked into a situation that didn't smell right. "Reggie Collins," he said. "Do you have paperwork for this sale?" I asked. "Authorization." His gaze flicked toward Kendra, then Ben, then back to me. "I was emailed a permission letter this morning," he said. "May I see it?" After a beat, he pulled a crisp page from his folder and handed it over. My name sat at the top, legal language beneath, and at the bottom, my signature. Almost. The loops were close, the slant familiar, but the pressure was wrong, like someone drawing my name instead of writing it. My hand went still. Because once you see your own signature turned into a weapon, you don't get to call this a misunderstanding. I looked up. "That isn't mine," I said quietly, and behind me, Kendra's voice rose, bright and sweet. "Reggie? Everything okay over there?" Kendra's voice, bright and sweet, floated over my shoulder, like perfume meant to cover smoke. "Reggie? Everything okay over there?" Reggie didn't answer her right away. His eyes stayed on the page in my hands, then lifted to my face, measuring the difference between a family squabble and a crime. I folded the letter once, then again. Creasing it with care, I refused to waste on panic. "I'm going inside," I said quietly. "This is my home." Macy stayed close as I walked past the folding table. Kendra's smile thinned at the edges. Ben shifted like he wanted to speak, then didn't like words would make him choose a side he'd already chosen. Inside, the house felt hollowed out and dressed up to pretend it wasn't. The air was colder than it should have been. Pale rectangles on the walls showed where frames had hung. Dust outlines marked where lamps used to sit. It wasn't messy, it was curated absence, like someone had erased me with clean hands. I sat at the foyer table where I sorted mail and kept spare keys, and I placed my purse down with the same care I used to place pins on my work cushion. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't touched in years because touching it meant something had gone wrong. "Simone Park." It rang twice. "Simone Park," she answered, steady, professional, unhurried. "It's Lorraine Whitaker," I said. "I need you to listen before I get angry." "I'm listening," she replied, and she didn't interrupt once. I gave her facts like an itemized receipt. The estate sale sign, strangers in my rooms, Kendra taking cash, Ben moving boxes, and the permission letter with my name, and not my signature. No embellishment, no pleading, just truth. When I finished, Simone paused, not in disbelief, in calculation. Then she asked, "Do you still have your original property inventory?" "Yes," I said. "Updated. Good. Pull it out. Now." I went to the hall closet where I kept the things people only care about when the worst happens. Insurance folders, deeds, a thick binder with tabs and plastic sleeves, my own handwriting, my own photos, serial numbers, appraisals. The record of what I'd built and what my husband and I had chosen piece by piece over decades. Back at the table, I opened it. The pages turned with a soft, familiar whisper. Silver tray. Maker's mark photographed. Quilt chest, measurements noted. China pattern named. Receipts tucked like pressed flowers. Proof with edges. Simone's voice sharpened. Here's what we do. Stay calm. Gather evidence. Photos of the price tags, the sign, the cash table. Get a clear photo of that letter. Ask Reggie for the email trail if he'll provide it. And don't argue in front of the crowd. You'll win this with documentation. They're saying I'm moving, I said, staring at an empty spot on the living room wall. Of course they are, Simone replied. They're building a narrative. We're going to dismantle it. The front door opened, and winter air slid into the foyer. Pastor Elaine stood there, coat half-buttoned, eyes already searching. One look at the stripped hallway and her face went still anger, so controlled it looked like composure. What have they done? She whispered. I covered the phone. Elaine, I said. I need you here. Simone heard the shift. Who was that? Pastor Elaine, I said. Good, Simone replied immediately. Lori, you need witnesses who won't bend. I looked at Elaine at the steadiness underneath her fury and nodded. I have one. Then my hand moved on instinct to the hallway console drawer where I kept the small, irreplaceable things. I lifted the cloth I'd wrapped and rewrapped for years. The space beneath it was empty. My husband's watch was gone. The empty space in that drawer felt louder than the noise outside. I stared at it, at the faint dust outline where the watch case had sat, at the soft cloth now covering nothing. My husband's watch wasn't valuable the way dealers mean valuable. It was valuable the way a wedding ring is valuable, because it holds a life inside it. Pastor Elaine stepped closer. When she saw my face, her expression tightened into something I'd never seen on her before, anger so controlled it looked like calm. I slipped the permission letter into my binder like evidence, shut the binder with a firm snap, and stood. No shaking, no rushing. If they wanted to turn me into a confused old woman, I wasn't going to give them a single gesture to use. On the front steps, the whole scene sat in ugly daylight. The estate sale sign, the folding table, strangers drifting through my lawn with my things in their hands. The driveway table looked like a little stage, and Kendra stood behind it like she'd built the set herself. Reggie was near the edge of the driveway with his folder open, speaking quietly to two staff members in matching jackets. When he saw me, his posture shifted. He didn't look like an auctioneer running a sale anymore. He looked like a man about to stop one. Kendra spotted me and stepped forward with her smile already assembled. Lorraine, she called, loud enough for neighbors to hear. We're just trying to help. This doesn't have to be... Reggie lifted a gloved hand, not at me, at the crowd. Folks, he said, voice carrying without shouting. May I have your attention a moment? The murmurs thinned. People turned, irritated and curious at once. A man paused with a box under his arm. The woman holding my lamp lowered it slightly, like the weight had suddenly changed. Reggie flipped a page in his folder, eyes scanning the lines. Owner of record, he read. Lorraine Whitaker, via Whitaker Family Trust. Kendra's smile widened reflexively, like she assumed this was the beginning of her justification. She took a half step forward, ready to nod along. Then Reggie continued, and his tone sharpened with procedure. Authorization required from the trustee named here as Lorraine Whitaker. Kendra froze. The smile stayed on her face for a beat too long, then tightened like it was being pulled by a string. Her eyes flicked to Ben, quick and panicked. Ben stood near the garage, shoulders tense, looking like he'd been waiting for someone else to carry the blame and just realized there was nowhere to set it down. I walked into view beside Reggie, steady as a clock. I didn't rush. I didn't tremble. I stopped where everyone could see my face match the name he'd just read. I'm here, I said, calm enough to cut through the cold air. I did not authorize this. Silence spread across the yard, thick and startled. Reggie didn't look to Kendra for permission. He turned back to the crowd. Given this information, the sale is suspended pending verification. No further transactions. A few people protested automatically. But I already paid, someone said, holding up a receipt. Reggie nodded to his staff. We'll document what's been moved. If you're holding an item from this property, please stay where you are. We'll handle it properly. His staff moved with clipboards and phones, photographing tags, noting faces, turning the cheerful yard sale chaos into something official. Behind me, Pastor Elaine quietly raised her phone and stepped aside, thumb moving with purpose. No theatrics, just action. A patrol car rolled up slow, lights off. An officer stepped out and scanned the sign, the table. The crowd now pretending they hadn't been eager minutes ago. Ben tried to step forward. Mom, please. I lifted one hand, palm out. Stop. He went still, mouth closing mid-word. The officer watched that single gesture, then looked at me with new understanding. Ma'am, he said, do you want to file a report? I tightened my grip on my binder, thinking of the empty drawer inside my house. Yes, I said. And I want it noted that something irreplaceable is already gone. Officer Daniels introduced himself, but what mattered was the way he looked past the lawn sale noise and focused on me, on the binder pressed to my side, on the fact I wasn't shaking. Let's step inside, he said. Reggie came with us, folder tucked under his arm, his face set in that tight professional calm that meant he'd smelled fraud and didn't intend to be part of it. Outside, his staff moved through the crowd with clipboards and phones, collecting names the way they'd collect bids politely, firmly. In my foyer, the air felt thin, as if the house itself was trying not to react. Officer Daniels opened his notepad. Tell me what happened. I did not authorize any sale, I said. They used a letter with a forged signature. His pen scratched. What's missing? I laid the binder open on the table and flipped to the tabs. Living room, dining, personnel. My handwriting stared back at me, neat and certain. Proof has its own calm. Stained glass lamp, I said, tapping the photo in the sleeve. Green and amber, bought in 1999. Serial number is written here. I turned the page. Silver tray maker's mark underneath. Cedar quilt chest, and my husband's watch. Gold face, brown leather strap, kept in the hallway drawer. Saying that last one made my throat tighten, but I didn't let my voice change. I gave details, approximate values, descriptions where numbers didn't exist. Officer Daniels asked me to repeat a few things, and I did. Facts don't get tired. Reggie slid a sheet across the table. Buyer info for items already exchanged, he said, voice low. Payment logs. Copies of the receipts they were writing. His jaw flexed. I halted it as soon as the trust language didn't match the authorization. Thank you, I said, and meant it. Officer Daniels filled out the report, then turned it toward me. I need your signature. For one breath, my hand hovered. Signing meant making this real in a way family couldn't wiggle out of. Then I picked up the pen and wrote Lorraine Whitaker with confident pressure, clean loops. No hesitation. If anyone compared signatures later, they'd know exactly which one was skin and which one was costume. My phone buzzed. Ben. Again. Before I could look, Simone called, and I put her on speaker. I'm filing an emergency injunction, she said. We're preventing any transfer of funds connected to this sale. I want Reggie's logs and your case number. I read it off. Simone's voice sharpened with satisfaction. Good. Keep everything. Do not let them talk you into handling it privately. When I stepped back outside, Ben was waiting near the porch, eyes wet, shoulders caving in. Mom, please, he whispered. Kendra was just trying to help. Helping, I said, steady. Doesn't need a fake signature. Behind him, Kendra was already working the neighbors, hands to her chest. She's been confused lately, she said loudly. Sensitive. Pastor Elaine slid into the circle and said calmly, I was with Lori at church. I can tell you exactly when she learned. Then she began calling witnesses. At my side, Macy held up her phone. Grandma, she whispered, I saved Mom's messages. On the screen, Kendra recruiting early birds to come get Grandma's things before I changed my mind. By Monday morning, the neighborhood had already decided it knew what happened. Not the truth, the version that fits into a single sentence. Lori had a little episode. The kids were just helping. You know how proud she is. As if pride is a diagnosis. Simone came to my house that afternoon with a legal pad and the kind of calm that makes you sit up straighter without meaning to. We sat at the foyer table with my inventory binder open like scripture, Macy's screenshots beside it, and the forged letter tucked into a sleeve. When I told Simone what Kendra had been saying, confused, sensitive Simone didn't look surprised. She looked confirmed. "This is a pattern," she said. "The sale wasn't the goal. It was a tool." I felt my fingers tighten on the edge of the binder. "A tool for what?" "For guardianship," Simone said. "If they can convince a judge you're incapacitated, unable to manage your finances, someone can be appointed to control your money and decisions. Once that happens, they don't have to steal. They can drain assets legally." The words hit harder than the empty drawer. A forged signature is a crime you can point to. Guardianship is a cage people call protection. "They're trying to make me look unstable," I said. "Yes," Simone replied. "Publicly, with witnesses. So if you object, you sound unreasonable. Kendra's language is always soft, help, stress, safety. It's cover." My throat tasted metallic. "What do we do?" "We get ahead of it," Simone said, decisive. "You schedule your own cognitive assessment with a specialist I trust. Not their doctor, yours. And you keep building evidence, quietly." 2 days later, I sat in a quiet office across from a physician who spoke to me like an adult. I filled out my own paperwork. I answered questions about dates, medications, finances. I repeated lists back, solved little problems, explained my understanding of my assets and my wishes. It felt insulting until I remembered what it really was. Armor. When I walked out, I wasn't relieved. I was fortified. Kendra, meanwhile, performed for an audience. Her social media post reached me the way these things always do through someone who meant well. A neighbor forwarded it with a single line. "Just so you know." A photo of Kendra holding a mug, eyes tired, captioned with careful vagueness. "Elder care is a lot. When someone you love won't accept help, it can break you. Praying for patience and wisdom. No name, no direct accusation, just implication, draped like a shawl. Lori can't manage herself. Kendra is the weary martyr." I didn't comment. I didn't call. I didn't defend myself in the public square she was building. Instead, I made a file. A real one. A new binder with tabs. Posts. Timestamps. Texts. Receipts. Photos. Report number. Forged letter. Reggie's summary. Every piece of paper that turned their story into evidence. Macy sat at my kitchen table with her laptop open, moving faster than I could. "Here," she said, pointing. "This one's to Mrs. Daly. And this one's a group text. She wrote early birds get the best stuff and told them to come before you changed your mind." Kendra's words sat in black and white, cheerful punctuation and all, like she'd forgotten words live longer than charm. That night, Reggie emailed a formal incident summary, short, clean, devastating. He halted the sale upon discovering authorization issues. Listing file showed ownership through the Whitaker Family Trust. Items documented. Logs attached. New emotion. Just procedure. On Thursday, Consequence found Ben in a place he couldn't charm his way out of. A voicemail from a clipped male voice. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Human Resources. Please come by my office. We need to discuss a report that's reached us regarding your conduct outside of work." Louisville is a small city inside a big one. Stories travel from church parking lots to break rooms faster than you'd think. That evening, Simone called again. "Kendra's post helps," she said. "It shows intent. Keep collecting." I looked at the stacks on my table, screenshots, logs, the evaluation appointment card. My inventory, like a family album, turned into proof and felt something settle inside me. They started a story about me, but I was the only one who could finish it. Then my phone lit up with a new notification. Kendra again. Sometimes professionals have to step in when family can't. The specialist's office smelled like fresh paper and old patients' beige walls, framed prints that tried too hard to soothe, a clock ticking loud enough to feel personal. I arrived early on purpose. If anyone was going to control the timeline, it would be me. I signed in with my own pen, wrote my own phone number, and listed Pastor Elaine as my emergency contact. Not Ben, not Kendra. The receptionist glanced up, surprised, then typed without comment when I met her eyes and didn't look away. When the nurse called, "Miss Whitaker?" I stood calmly and followed her down the hallway. Blood pressure. Medication list. A few gentle questions meant to sound casual, but weren't. Baseline. Record. Facts. Dr. Warren met me in a small office with wire-rim glasses and a steady face that didn't perform sympathy. He shook my hand and said, "This appointment is for you, not for anyone else." "I understand," I replied, and felt something in my chest loosen. He started with simple orientation date, place, why I was there. Then, memory. 3 words to repeat. Later. Reasoning. A clock face to draw. Math. Subtraction in steady steps. Comprehension. Repeating a sentence. Explaining a proverb. I answered the way I used to run my alterations shop, precise, unhurried, confident. When he asked about my day-to-day life, I gave structure. Bills, groceries, appointments, church, home maintenance. When he asked about finances, I described how my accounts were set up, how I tracked payments, why I kept an inventory binder. "I maintain records," he observed. "I maintain reality," I said softly. He made notes, then asked about Sunday. I didn't tell a dramatic story. I gave a timeline. Unauthorized sale, forged letter, police report, attorney, evidence. Halfway through, there was a knock, then the door opened. Ben and Kendra stepped in like they belonged there, faces arranged into concern. Ben looked worn down, eyes red at the edges. Kendra looked polished, her pity practiced. "Oh, thank goodness," Kendra said, moving closer. "We've been so worried. She didn't tell us." Dr. Warren lifted a hand. "This is a private evaluation." "Who are you?" "I'm her daughter-in-law," Kendra said quickly. "We're just... Miss Whitaker invited you," he asked, looking at me, not them. "No," I said. One clean syllable. Ben swallowed. "Mom, we just wanted to make sure. I don't want to be alone with them," I said, steady. "Not anywhere my words can be twisted." Kendra tried to speak for me anyway. "She's upset and..." Dr. Warren cut in, calm as a locked door. "Ma'am, I asked the patient, not the audience." They hesitated, testing authority. It didn't bend. They left. After, Dr. Warren wrote a statement on letterhead and handed it to me. No evidence of cognitive impairment. Clear understanding of finances and consent. I folded it carefully and put it in my purse like a key. In the parking lot, Simone's voice sharpened with satisfaction. "Perfect," she said. "We attach that to everything." Across the lot, Kendra talked fast at Ben, and Ben shrank beside her 2 people, realizing the story they tried to write had just been signed out of their hands. Simone didn't listen to the voice memo like gossip. She listened like a surgeon still, focused, letting the sound reveal what it was. We were in her downtown office. Macy sat beside me, phone clutched in both hands. Simone slipped an earbud in and nodded once. "Play it." Kendra's voice came through first, crisp, impatient, stripped of the sweetness she wore in public. "Because if we do it right, the court decides she can't manage herself. Guardianship. Then it's not stealing, Ben. It's protecting her." Ben's voice followed, smaller. "That sounds... extreme." "It's smart," Kendra snapped. "She's stubborn. She'll fight. That's why we need witnesses and a paper trail, confusion, stress, the neighbors, and you need to stop looking guilty. You're her son. You're the reasonable one." My body didn't react with shock. It reacted with clarity. Cold, clean certainty. This had never been a misunderstanding. Simone took the earbud out and set it down like it was evidence with teeth. "Admissibility depends on context," she said, eyes on Macy. "But intent? Strategy? This is a blueprint. What do we do?" I asked. "We move fast," Simone replied. "Emergency protective order. We bar Ben and Kendra from handling your finances, your property, any access to accounts. We keep everything routed through council." 2 mornings later, the courthouse smelled like old stone and new fear. Simone walked beside me, heels clicking like punctuation. I held my binder tight police report, Reggie's summary, the forged letter, and Dr. Warren's statement folded like armor. Kendra sat straight in a cream blazer, lips glossy, hands folded as if she were waiting for a church photo. Her attorney leaned in to whisper. Ben sat half a step behind them, shoulders hunched, eyes darting like he wanted to disappear. The judge entered an older woman with tired eyes and a voice that didn't entertain nonsense. Emergency motion in Whitaker? Miss Park? Simone Rose. Your Honor, Lorraine Whitaker is present. This motion is necessitated by an attempted unauthorized estate sale supported by a forged authorization letter and an effort to portray Miss Whitaker as incapacitated. Kendra's attorney started. This is a family misunderstanding. A forged signature is not a misunderstanding. The judge cut in, sharp. Proceed. Simone laid it out clean. The fake letter, Reggie's incident statement halting the sale, and Dr. Warren's cognitive evaluation confirming I was competent and oriented. Kendra's attorney tried again. Softer. Concerns. Elder care, stress. Concerns do not authorize fraud, the judge said. Then she looked at Ben and Kendra. Temporary restrictions are granted. Neither of you will access Miss Whitaker's accounts, handle her property, or represent yourselves as authorized agents. Any contact regarding assets goes through counsel. Do you understand? Kendra's attorney answered. Ben's voice came out raw. Yes. As we stood to leave, Ben stepped into my path. His eyes weren't pleading for comfort anymore. They were waking up. And that was the most frightening part. The first thing I did after court wasn't cry or call Ben. I went to a locksmith. He showed up in a van that smelled like metal and oil. Asked for proof I owned the house, then got to work without needing the whole story. The old lock came apart with a soft clink, something trusted too long finally admitting it was tired. By noon, my front and back doors had new deadbolts and keys that hadn't lived in anyone else's pocket. I slid the ring of copies into my purse and felt a kind of control that didn't depend on anyone's mercy. Next came the cameras. A young technician mounted them under the eaves driveway, back gate, side yard, and handed me my porch on a live feed. Seeing my own home from a distance did something strange. It made the illusion of safety look childish. Structure was better. Simone emailed the no trespass notice that afternoon. Simple language, sharp edges. Ben's name, Kendra's name. No entry without written permission. Any attempt treated as trespass. Paper isn't warm, but it holds. I taped it inside my front window. Not for them, for the world. For anyone tempted to believe my silence meant consent. Then the community corrected itself. Pastor Elaine didn't announce anything from the pulpit. She called people quietly, one by one, the way she called when someone was sick or grieving. By Friday, church volunteers sat at my kitchen table with notepads and steady eyes. We're not here to gossip, Mrs. Daly said. We're here to help you get your things back. Some buyers were embarrassed once they understood. They'd believed the sign because Kendra smiled like it was legitimate, and Ben stood there like a son doing a hard duty. People want to feel decent. So when they heard forged signature, and police report, and she's alive, many did the right thing. Saturday morning, a couple returned my stained glass lamp wrapped in a quilt. The man carried it carefully, eyes down. We didn't know, he murmured. I took it, felt the familiar weight, and nodded once. Thank you for bringing it back. Reggie called me that same day. Miss Whitaker, I want to put out a corrective statement through my auction channels, he said. About authorization, procedure, clearing your name. Do it, I told him. Truth travels better when professionals carry it. On Monday, I opened a new bank account and moved my automatic deposits, rerouted payments, cut off access points I hadn't realized were vulnerable. That night, Ben sent a long apology email Mom. Please read. I didn't open it. Words were his comfort. Action was mine. Macy started spending weekends with me. We rehung pictures, reshelved books, rebuilt the quiet places. Sunday evening, she showed me her phone. Kendra had posted again, elder safety, protecting family, professionals, and one line that chilled me. We're exploring next steps. Simone filed the civil suit on a Tuesday, so ordinary it felt insulting. Sun out, coffee lines downtown, traffic moving like it always did while my family's betrayal became stamped pages. Conversion, fraud, and damages for the things they tried to take and the story they tried to paste over me. Reputation harm is real harm, Simone said, tapping the filing. They used your community as a weapon. A week later, we sat in mediation beige walls, a pitcher of water, tissues placed like expectation. I wore my navy skirt and sat straight with my binder on the table. Today, it wasn't nostalgia. It was evidence. Kendra arrived 5 minutes late, dressed soft and neutral, face arranged into careful fatigue. Ben came behind her, jaw tight, eyes darting. The mediator calm voice, practiced neutrality, explained confidentiality and resolution. Kendra nodded too quickly. We want resolution. We've been worried sick. Simone slid a folder across the table. This is documented fraud, she said. We're here because my client is willing to hear a settlement proposal. Kendra turned toward me and began a performance that sounded like remorse until you listened for the missing piece accountability. Lorraine, she said softly, I never wanted you to feel unsafe. I was under pressure. Elder care, stress. Sometimes you're so independent, you don't see. I didn't interrupt. I watched. Kendra apologized the way someone apologizes when they've been caught, not when they've been wrong. The mediator looked at Ben. Mr. Whitaker? Ben swallowed hard. I knew it was wrong. The words hit the room like a dropped plate. Kendra's head snapped toward him. Ben? He pushed on, voice rough. Selling Mom's things without her there. I knew. But we were drowning debt, bills. Kendra said it was temporary, that Mom would understand once it was done. Kendra's mask slipped into something sharper. You're not putting this on me, she said. You moved the boxes. You said you'd handle your mother. You always promise and then freeze. Ben's shoulders rose defensively. I froze because it felt wrong. Because it was wrong. And you still did it, she shot back. Don't act innocent. They turned on each other so fast it almost felt unreal excuses collapsing into blame. Ben blamed debt. Kendra blamed Ben. The mediator cleared his throat, trying to pull the room back to facts. Simone nodded. Facts are easy. I opened my binder. Plastic sleeves whispered as I turned pages. Every missing item is listed, I said evenly. Photo, date, estimated value. Simone pointed to entries matching Reggie's logs. Buyers, receipts, payment trails, forged letter, police report, court restrictions, medical documentation confirming competence. The mediator leaned back, lips pressed. My recommendation is full restitution, return of items where possible, legal fees, and a written acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Ben exhaled. Kendra's mouth tightened. That's excessive. Simone's voice stayed flat. It's the minimum. We're also pursuing sanctions. In the hallway afterward, Ben caught up to me. Mom, I'll make it right. I looked at him. Calm. Then stop letting her speak for you. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen and went pale. Work, he whispered. 2 days after mediation, Simone called and said, They're still trying to make you the problem. I was at my kitchen table with Macy, sorting mail into neat stacks the way I always had bills, church bulletins, coupons I'd never use. Outside, the new camera over my driveway blinked its quiet green, and the world looked ordinary enough to make you doubt your own memory. What now? I asked. Local station reached out, Simone said. They're doing a short segment on elder financial abuse, consent, scams, family pressure. They heard about the estate sale through Reggie's corrective statement and the police report. I told them you'd consider it. I stared at the rim of my mug until the steam vanished. I'm not interested in being on television. I know, Simone replied, steady. But Kendra is working the only currency she understands. Perception. She wants your community to see you as confused. A clean public truth makes that harder. And it helps other people. Macy's eyes lifted from her phone, searching my face like she was afraid my courage had an expiration date. All right, I said finally. Short? Plain? The studio was a small local setup off Bardstown Road. half newsroom and half storage closet. Cables ran along the floor like vines. Bright lights made the air feel hot, even though it was February outside. A producer clipped a microphone to my blouse and told me to just be yourself, as if a camera didn't change the shape of your breathing. The anchor was young, polite, and careful with his words. Simone sat off camera with her arms crossed, watching for traps. Pastor Elaine came too, not for drama, just to be there the way she'd been there since Sunday. The anchor asked, "Miss Whitaker, what do you want people to understand?" I looked into the lens. For a second, I saw my front lawn full of strangers. The estate sale sign. The price tags. Kendra's smile. I let the picture pass through me without grabbing it. "I want them to understand consent," I said. "And I want them to understand ownership." He asked about the forged letter, the attempted sale, the police report. He asked, gently, about family, the way reporters do when they think they're offering you a soft place to land. That question tightened something behind my ribs, but I kept my voice where it belonged. "If you're alive," I said, clear enough to cut through the studio hum, "you're the owner. If you didn't sign, it isn't permission." No tears, no performance, just plain language. The kind people can repeat without turning it into gossip. When it aired that evening, I didn't sit down in front of the TV like it was a celebration. Macy did curled on my couch with a blanket over her knees, remote in her hand. Pastor Elaine sat in my armchair, face calm, eyes bright. I folded laundry in the dining room, listening to my own voice float down the hallway like it belonged to someone steadier. Afterward, my phone didn't stop. Not Ben, not Kendra. Neighbors, church friends, women whose names I knew but whose stories I didn't. A man calling on behalf of his mother. A woman from the next street over who said, voice trembling, "My son's girlfriend keeps offering to help with paperwork. She keeps asking what my house is worth." Another caller told me her sister had been nudged into signing a temporary power of attorney she didn't understand. Someone else said their father's savings account had been managed right into nothing. Different households. Same tactics. Simone called later, brisk but satisfied. "This is good," she said. "People coming forward shows pattern. It makes it harder to paint you as the exception." Kendra's social circle cooled in the way Louisville does. Cooling, quiet, polite, final. Invitations stop. Smiles flatten. People forget to respond. Mrs. Daly leaned in at church the next morning and whispered like it was a prayer request. Kendra wasn't at book club, and nobody asked where she was. Ben called that afternoon. His voice was tired in a way that went beyond guilt, like consequences had started landing in places he couldn't dodge. "Mom," he said, can we talk like family? Without lawyers? Without all of this?" I held the phone loosely and stared at the front window, where the no trespass notice sat crisp behind the glass. "Family didn't hold an auction while I prayed," I said. There was a long silence, then a small, broken exhale. "I know." That Friday, Macy came home from school with a note folded in her pocket. She handed it to me at the kitchen table like it was fragile. "My counselor asked me to give you this," she said, cheeks pink. "She said I did the right thing." The note was short praise for reporting what she'd recorded, for not carrying something heavy alone, for choosing truth even when it meant trouble. I looked at my granddaughter, this quiet backbone trapped between adults who didn't deserve her, and my throat tightened for the first time all week. "You did," I told her softly. "You did exactly right." Later that night, after Macy went to bed, I checked my email for the first time in days. Ben's apology was still there, unread. But there was a new message above it, no subject line, just forwarded texts and an attachment. The sender was a name I didn't recognize. The first line read, "Miss Whitaker, I think your daughter-in-law is doing this to someone else now." The email sat on my screen like a hand on a doorknob. I didn't open the attachment right away. I stared at the sender's name, someone I didn't recognize, and let my pulse slow before I touched anything. Simone had trained me into a new kind of patience. Don't react first. Document first. I forwarded it to her with one line. "New potential victim. See below." Then I printed the email and set it beside my growing file. Paper is harder to erase. In the quiet of my kitchen, With Macy asleep down the hall and the house finally arranged back into something like mine, I understood what I'd been circling for weeks. Kendra wasn't going to stop because she felt bad. She was going to stop when it became expensive, when it became impossible. The next morning, Simone called before I'd finished my coffee. "I read it," she said. "It's consistent with the same tactics. But right now, Lori, I want to close the biggest door she keeps trying to walk through." "My door," I said. "Your trust," Simone replied. "Your estate plan. The map people like her treat like a prize." The word trust used to feel gentle. Now it sounded like a vault someone had been rattling for weakness. "I already have one," I said. "You do," Simone answered. "And it protected you last Sunday. But it still lists Ben as a beneficiary. Kendra benefits through him. You can't leave a window open and hope a burglar grows a conscience." My fingers tightened around the mug until I felt heat against my skin. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though the answer was already forming. "A revision," Simone said. "Immediate. Ben removed. Kendra barred by name. A no contest clause, so any challenge costs them. And a protected fund for Macy." Macy's name softened something in me, then turned it into resolve. My granddaughter deserved a future that didn't come with her parents' hands hovering over it. "All right," I said. "Let's do it." Simone's downtown office was bright with winter sun when I arrived. The city moved outside the glass like nothing in my life had been rearranged. People crossing streets, buses, sighing at stoplights. The usual. Inside, Simone's table was prepared with tabs, documents, and a pen placed exactly where my hand would land. Pastor Elaine met me there. Not for spectacle, for support. She hugged me once, brief and firm. "You don't have to explain yourself to me," she murmured. "You only have to protect what's yours." Simone walked me through each page with calm precision. Beneficiaries, trustees, authority, the no contest clause, written in language that sounded polite, but behaved like a locked gate. "This means," Simone explained, "if they try to challenge your changes in court, they risk forfeiting what they might otherwise argue for. It discourages harassment." I nodded. Harassment was exactly what Kendra called help. Then Simone slid a second set of papers across the table. "This is Macy's protected fund," she said. "Accessible at 25. Structured so her parents can't touch it directly or indirectly. Not through debt, not through persuasion, not through accidents." I swallowed hard, picturing Macy at 16 quiet, loyal, too aware. 25 felt far away, and also like the first age where she might breathe without someone pulling her choices. "And this part," Simone added, tapping a paragraph, "lets you add a trustee of your choosing if something happens to you. Someone who answers to the trust, not to Ben or Kendra." Pastor Elaine's eyes met mine. No judgment, only steadiness. On the far side of Simone's office were 2 small boxes I'd brought from Home Items, chosen the night before with unexpected calm. Not everything. Not the things tied to my husband's memory, but select heirlooms pieces Kendra had treated like future assets, the way a greedy person treats a ledger. "These are going out of reach," I said. Simone nodded. "Where?" "A women's shelter," I told her. "And the local history museum." The shelter would receive a set of hand-stitched quilts and a sturdy oak dresser, good, solid things meant to hold someone up when life had knocked them down. The museum would receive a small collection from my alterations shop days. Vintage sewing tools, patterns, a framed photo of my storefront. Not for vanity, for record, for respect. Simone made notes. "We'll document the donations," she said. "Receipts, updated inventory. It strengthens your file and removes temptation." When she was done explaining, Simone turned the final signature pages toward me. "Are you comfortable signing?" she asked. I looked at the papers and thought of the estate sale sign planted in my lawn like a flag. Ben's text telling me not to make a scene. The forged letter pretending to be my hand. The empty drawer where my husband's watch should have been. Then I thought of Macy sitting at my kitchen table, saving evidence instead of gossip, choosing truth even when it scared her. "I'm comfortable," I said. Pastor Elaine stood beside me while I signed. Not hovering, Not commenting, just present. Simone notarized. Dates were stamped. Copies were made. Then Simone did the part that mattered most. She filed the changes immediately, electronically, so they became effective before anyone could apply pressure or spin a new story. Before I left, Simone slid one more sheet toward me. A statement for the record, she said. Plain language. I wrote in my neat, steady hand. Removed due to attempted fraud and coercion. On the elevator ride down, my phone buzzed. A text from Ben. Just 3 words. Like a plea and a warning at the same time. Mom, call me. Ben's text sat on my screen the whole ride home like a light left on in an empty room. Mom, call me. I didn't. Not from the elevator, not from my car, not from the kitchen where Macy was doing homework with her pencil moving fast, pretending her hands weren't trembling from weeks of adult chaos. I waited until the house was quiet, until the cameras had switched into their night mode and the porch light cast that steady yellow circle on the steps. Then I called Simone instead. He wants to talk, I said. He can talk through counsel, she replied, immediate. Or he can write. Paper keeps him honest. So I opened Ben's long email for the first time. It wasn't short. It wasn't clean. It was him, trying to build a bridge out of words after lighting the shore on fire. He wrote about debt and fear and feeling trapped. He wrote that Kendra pushed and he let her. He wrote that he didn't recognize himself anymore. He wrote, "I'm sorry," so many times it started to look like a stamp. I read it once. Then I read it again, slower, looking for the part where he said the one thing I needed to hear. Not I was scared. Not I didn't know what to do. But I chose. The closest he got was one line buried in the middle like he hoped I'd miss it. I should have stopped it. And I didn't. That was the truth. Small, plain, and late. The next afternoon, Ben showed up anyway. Not at my front door, he wasn't allowed. He parked across the street like someone afraid of the house itself, then called from his car. The phone rang while I was wiping down the kitchen counter. My hands paused on the cloth. Macy glanced up from the table, eyes wide. I answered without putting it on speaker. Yes? Mom, Ben said, voice strained. I'm outside. I looked through the front window at his car idling by the curb, his silhouette hunched forward. You know you can't come up to the door. I know, he said quickly. I'm not here to do anything. Please. 5 minutes. I'll stand on the sidewalk. You don't have to come close. I should have said no. Every attorney instinct in Simone's voice would have told me to. But this wasn't about legal advantage. This was about the human cost that kept trying to turn itself into excuses. I'll step onto the porch, I said. That's it. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. My porch boards felt solid under my shoes. Ben stayed by the curb, hands in his jacket pockets like he didn't trust them not to reach for something. He looked older than 45. Not in a dignified way. In the way men look when their denial has finally started charging interest. I saw the trust filing, he said. His voice cracked on the word trust like it was a betrayal of its own. Simone sent notice. I didn't answer. Silence is a boundary too. He swallowed and went on. Kendra moved out. She's staying with her sister. She's telling people you're being manipulated by your lawyer and your pastor. A bitter laugh slipped out, quick and ugly. Can you believe that? Like you can't make a decision unless someone hands it to you. I felt my fingers curl around the porch railing. That's what she wanted everyone to believe from the start. Ben nodded, eyes shining. I let her steer me, he said. I thought keeping peace was the same as being a good husband. And I thought you'd always forgive me. Because you always have. There it was. The ugliest truth in his whole confession. He'd gambled on my softness. The damage wasn't just the money, I said, voice quiet but steady. It wasn't even the things. It was the way you treated me like I was already gone. Like my life was an inconvenience you could manage. He flinched, like I'd slapped him without moving. I know, he whispered. I know, Mom. I hate myself for it. Hate is loud. Responsibility is quiet. I watched his face for the difference. What do I do? He asked. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'll sell my truck, Don't bargain with me, I said. This isn't a price you pay and get your old access back. Ben's mouth opened, then closed. He nodded once, small. I let the next words come out clean, because clean words are harder to twist. Pay what you owe, I told him. Follow the settlement. Don't miss a payment. Don't try to negotiate around it. And let Macy breathe. At the mention of Macy, his shoulders caved a little more. I never wanted her in the middle. And yet, I said softly. His eyes dropped to the pavement. I glanced back through the glass at my kitchen table, where Macy sat very still, pretending not to listen while listening to everything. She's here, I said. That's what matters. Ben nodded, swallowing hard. Can I talk to her? Not today, I said. And not like this. If you want to be a father, start by respecting the boundaries you helped make necessary. He nodded again, and for a moment he looked like a boy being told he'd broken something he can't replace. Across town, the legal machine had already started moving. Simone emailed me the first settlement draft that evening. Restitution, legal fees, formal acknowledgement, a schedule, a structure, consequences with dates attached. It was strange, seeing grief translated into monthly payments, but it was also satisfying in a way I hadn't expected. Paper doesn't pretend. Kendra tried to pretend, though. She posted vague lines about toxic family dynamics and strong women being punished for taking initiative. The comments under her posts got quieter every day. Louisville's cold shoulder isn't dramatic, it's surgical. People simply stop showing up for you. The first Sunday after all of it, I hosted lunch again. Not a feast, just chicken salad, rolls, tea, and a lemon cake Macy insisted on making from scratch, even though she kept checking the recipe like it might betray her. Pastor Elaine came. Mrs. Daly, two church friends who didn't ask for details, only asked if I needed anything carried, anything fixed, anything held steady. We ate at my table with the returned lamp glowing softly in the corner. Light stained green and amber-like sunlight through old glass. The house still had empty spaces, but they were my empty spaces now chosen, not stolen. When everyone left, Macy stood at the sink washing dishes, sleeves pushed up, humming under her breath. My phone buzzed on the counter. A new email from Ben. No apology this time. Just one sentence. Kendra says she has proof you're hiding assets, and she's going to court again. The morning the last court notice came in, it didn't feel like thunder. It felt like a door clicking shut. Simone called and said, Kendra's proof is a donation receipt she doesn't understand. We documented everything properly, the shelter, the museum. Her motion went nowhere. The judge advised her attorney to stop before sanctions get personal. I thanked Simone and stood in my hallway with my hand on the console table above the drawer that had once held my husband's watch. That drawer stayed empty. Not because I couldn't replace what was taken, but because I refused to pretend some losses don't change you. I walked through my house slowly, not checking for damage anymore, checking what held. The stained glass lamp was back in its corner, casting green and amber warmth like sunlight through old church windows. My wedding china sat behind cabinet doors again, but I didn't fuss over perfect stacking. Perfection is just fear-wearing lipstick, and I was done with it. The quilt chest was back at the foot of the stairs. A few frames were still missing, and pale rectangles showed where they'd been. I left them. Those empty spaces weren't shame. They were proof I'd survived. After church, Pastor Elaine stopped by, and we sat at my kitchen table with tea in the good cups. Because using good things is how you tell life it doesn't get to shrink you. She didn't ask for gossip. She asked gently, "How do you feel?" I considered it carefully. Not happy, I said. Not triumphant, just protected. Elaine nodded, eyes bright. Protection isn't revenge. No, I agreed. It's a boundary that keeps its shape. Macy came downstairs with a shoebox hugged to her chest. I made something, she said, voice shy but steady. Inside was a photo album with a hand-lettered cover. Grandma's things. I opened it and saw photos of what had been saved. Lamp, quilt, chest, silver tray, each with Macy's captions about where it came from and why it mattered. One page held a photo of my old alterations shop storefront, the one I'd donated to the museum, and beneath it she'd written, This was Grandma's work. This is how she took care of people. Then a blank square, just empty paper with a small caption. Missing. Because some things don't come back. But we remember. My throat tightened. I covered Macy's hand with mine. Thank you, I whispered. I didn't want them to decide what mattered, she said. They don't, I told her. They never did. That afternoon, Simone delivered a final binder trust documents, directives, protective orders, security steps. Everything organized so nothing could be hijacked again. Ben's keeping distance, she added. Support for Macy is going through approved channels. He's complying. That night, I checked the locks, glanced at the camera feed, and let the empty spots on the walls stay visible. I slid the deadbolt into place with a steady hand finished. They held an estate sale of my things while I was at church, until the auctioneer read the owner's name, and I remembered exactly who I still was.